with the Pledge of Allegiance. Charles has the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, Charles.
I didn't realize when I stood up, my flag disappeared.
Well, we're past that now. So
Moving right along.
the minutes of the March 9th, 2021 meeting have been published. They were on pages 1 to 3 of your packet. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second by Dean Hudson.
Any questions or comments? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So moved. Do we have anybody for public comment today? This is the opportunity for comments from members of the audience. The amount of time available to speak will be limited to 3 minutes or to the discretion of the chairman. And commenters must indicate their wish to comment, typically on a sign-in sheet if you're aware of a face-to-face meeting. But do we have anybody that wishes to speak? Not hearing or seeing anybody, I'll call for one more time for public comment. I don't hear anything. Let's go ahead and get into the agenda for today. What I'm going to suggest is we've got 4 actions relating to planning. Those are resolutions 2105, 07, 08, and 09. Is there any objection if we do all these in a consensus agenda with one vote at the end of the planning section?
No objection.
Nobody objects?
No objection.
Fine with me.
Thank you. That'll make this a little bit more expedient to get to the motion. It takes quite a while to do the votes on each one of these. So we'll begin with the resolution 2105. It's the 2021-2022 UPWP amendment number 4, fiscal year 2022. Update is on page 3, and you could view the UPWP on page 3. Also, we have performance measures to discuss and the adoption of Indiana State performance targets for pavement conditions, bridge conditions, and freight. Do we have someone from staff who's going to make the presentation this morning?
I will be making the presentation on the performance measure.
Thank you. Could you proceed then?
Sure. So we're moving to resolution 2106, if I'm correct?
Correct.
Okay. So resolution 2106 asks for a recommendation that NERC adopt the state adjusted 4-year performance measures in the areas of pavement condition, bridge condition, and freight reliability on the interstate system. Let me briefly share my screen here. So here's the agenda packet. As you can see, it is on pages, starting on pages 4 of your agenda packet, all the way through page 6. So on page 6, you can see what the adjustments that the state of Indiana has proposed for these 4-year performance measures, and we are being asked whether we accept the adjustments or whether we are going to set our own adjustments, because the state of Indiana decided on November 15th, in October of last year, to adjust these 5 performance measures that we originally adopted back on November 15th of 2018. And so the changes, as you can see on page 6, are relatively minor, but I'm going to go over them briefly. The percentage of interstate pavements in good condition, the original 4-year target that we adopted back on November 15th of 2018 was 84.24% by 2021. and the state of Indiana has proposed adjusting that to 50% by 2021. I've been informed by the reason that they are adjusting this downward is not that we don't want our interstates to be in better condition, but that the data collection method that we originally adopted back in 2018, there were some errors in that, and more accurate reflection of that data collection method would be to see about this 50% target. So that's why that's being adjusted. It seems like so dramatically, but it's really just a data collection issue. The second one that's being adjusted is the percent of non-interstate national highway system pavements in good condition. That's being adjusted from 78.71% by 2021 to 40% by 2021. The percent of national highway system bridge area in good condition is being adjusted from 48.32% by 2021 down to 47.2% by 2021. So a very minor change there. The percent of national highway system bridge area in poor condition is changing from 2.63% by 2021 to 3.1% by 2021. And then the truck travel time reliability index is changing from 1.24 by 2021 to 1.30 by 2021. All of these adjustments are pretty minor in nature, and they have been reviewed by the Surface Transportation Committee earlier this morning, and that committee has recommended that this committee also recommend these adjustments for approval to go before the full commission on April 15th. Are there any questions that anybody has of me before I ask the chair to enter, or actually we're doing consent agenda. Are there any questions of me at this time?
Any questions for Scott or myself? Having said that, the recommendation or the action with the consent agenda later on will be a vote to recommend. Let's backtrack to resolution 2105. Does staff or anybody have any comments on the resolution 2105 before we proceed? That's the 2021-2022 UPWP amendment number 4 is found on page 3. Anybody? If not, let's proceed on to discussing the public comment report and air quality conformity and plan amendment resulting from resolution 2107, as well as discussion of the air quality conformity found pages 7 to 8, and discuss the adoption of air quality conformity for Northwest Indiana 2050 amendment number 2, fiscal year 2022-2026. Tip.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I briefly mention the agenda items 3.3, the public comment report for the air quality conformity and the plan amendment. We have solicited public comment starting on March 9th, 2021, so just about a month ago, and it runs through April 8th, so a couple more days. So far, we have received no public comments on these items. Again, the air quality conformity determination is a federally required prerequisite for before we can make the amendment number 2 to the NWI 2050 plan, as well as adopt the new 2022 to 2026 transportation improvement program, which will come up later in the programming section of the agenda. So we didn't receive any public comments for that. And then if I may, unless there are questions, move on to 3.4, as the chair just discussed, resolution 2107, which is about the air quality conformity determination itself, starting on pages 7 of your agenda packet and running to page 8. The resolution actually refers to the supplemental air quality conformity determination report, which was available on our website in the meeting announcement area. So I'll pull that up briefly, but that's what the resolution refers to. Let me just. So this document was available on our website for your review. It wasn't part of the packet, but this was the air quality conformity determination report between, as I mentioned, NWI 2050 amendment number 2 and the 2022 to 2026 transportation improvement program and the Indiana state implementation plan for air quality. This document was reviewed under the purview of NERC's Interagency Consultation Group on Air Quality, who has convened virtually. And that group, once again, is comprised of NERC, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, the Indiana Department of Transportation, and the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And collectively, the ICG, or the Interagency Consultation Group, has reviewed this document and found that it meets the technical requirements. And this is required because the Environmental Protection Agency has designated Lake and Porter counties as non-attainment for the 2008 air ozone standard, as well as LaPorte County as a maintenance area for the 1997 ozone standard. So before we can federally fund significant projects, we have to first demonstrate air quality conformity. And the way that we do that is we run an emissions analysis that all of the projects collectively are projected to result in emissions that are at or below the budgets for the ozone precursors. And that analysis is found in table 5.9.1 of the supplemental document. And as you can see, in every budget year that's on the record in the state implementation plan, 2011, 2017, 2020, 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050, the emissions for the precursors of ozone, for that's NOx, which is nitrous oxides, are at or below the budgets for those precursors. And then as well as for volatile organic compounds, the emissions are under the budgets for those in the state implementation plan. So the recommendation is that the air quality conformity determination report is found to show conformity pending the formal finding by the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, which will begin a formal consultation period after the full commission approves the documents on April 15th. So that's all I have. Are there any questions about the air quality conformity determination?
Anybody, any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to part 3.5 of planning, resolution 2108, move Northwest Indiana adherence. Pages 9 to 14 contain that. This will demonstrate that projects and planned amendment conform to congestion management process.
Yes, Mr. Chair, once again, so item 3.5, resolution 2108, move NWI adherence. So move NWI is the congestion management process that NERC adopted back in September of last year. This is a federally required congestion management process that stipulates that any major capacity adding projects that are added to the NWI 2050 plan or any transportation improvement programs be found to demonstrate adherence to move NWI. So NERC staff has reviewed all of the projects that came in as a result of the notice of funding availability, or NOFA, projects that are going to be included in our 2022 to 2026 transportation improvement program, as well as NWI 2050 amendment number 2. And we've only found that staff has found that only 2 projects that need to demonstrate adherence to move NWI. And those 2 projects are the Town of St. John's Klein Avenue Gap Extension Project, which is from 93rd Avenue to 101st Avenue, and Porter County's Willow Creek Road Extension Phases 3 and 4, which is the segment from State Road 130 down to US 30. The segment from 700 North down to State Road 130 has already been found to demonstrate adherence to a congestion management process in the past. So the way that we demonstrate adherence to move NWI is through technical analysis, and these 2 projects in particular were able to demonstrate adherence because of the projected vehicle hours traveled, which is kind of a measure of congestion as determined by the travel demand model, exceeded more than 5% reductions from the build scenario as opposed to the no build scenario if these projects were not included. And that's demonstrated, for example, this is page 12 of the agenda packet, table 1, for the Klein Avenue Gap project in St. John. That resulted in a vehicle hours traveled reduction of 6.3%, which is above the 5% threshold. For the Porter County Willow Creek Road project, that demonstrated adherence based on the percentage vehicle hours traveled reduction from our regional corridor study that we adopted back in 2016. There are certain corridors where we see a much greater than 5% reduction in vehicle hours traveled on 475 West and 450 West, for example, alone are much greater than 5%. So therefore, by the analysis of the vehicle hours traveled reduction, these two projects meet the criteria for demonstrating adherence in Move NWI. And this committee is being asked for a recommendation that these projects demonstrate adherence to Move NWI to the full commission on April 15th. The Surface Transportation Committee also reviewed this and recommended that these two projects demonstrate adherence this morning. Are there any questions about that?
It's looking good. Any questions for Scott?
I have none.
So in that case, let's move on to section 3.6, which is the resolution 2109, approval Northwest Indiana 2050 amendment number 2, found on pages 15 to 17.
Okay, once again, so Mr. Chair, item 3.6, resolution 2109, which is NWI 2050 amendment number 2 on pages 15 to 17 of your agenda packets, is an amendment to the region's Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which we adopted back in May of 2019. That was the NWI 2050 plan. This is only the second amendment of the plan. And this amendment makes 4 changes. The 4 changes are found in the table on page 17 of your agenda packets. 2 of the changes are just modifications to existing projects, and then there are 2 additional projects being added as a result of the amendment. The 2 modifications are an NDOT project, US 41 added center turn lane. The southern endpoint of State Road 2 is being edited to 135th place, which is in the Cedar Lake area, so a little bit further north. The project isn't quite as large in scope as was originally depicted in the NWI 2050 plan, but this is not really a real change to the project. The reason why we had the southern endpoint of State Road 2 was just for some clerical purposes of being able to include this project in the travel demand model. So it doesn't reflect any changes to the actual expenditures or scope of the projects. It's just for clerical purposes. The second modification has to do with the Main Street Extension project. This is a Town of Munster project. In the original NWI 2050 plan, it's depicted as being complete by 2030, but after consulting with town officials, it's more realistic to say complete by 2040. So that's another change as a result of this amendment. And this is the Main Street extension from Columbia Avenue as the eastern terminus to Burnham Avenue in Illinois in the village of Linwood as the western terminus. The 2 projects that are being added as a result of amendment number 2 to NWI 2050 are like I already mentioned these projects in the Move NWI adherence, but the Town of St. John's Klein Avenue Gap Extension project from 93rd Avenue to 101st Avenue. The information about that project is in the table right here. Is complete by 2030. We use years that are divisible by 5 or 10 for convenience, for including in our air quality conformity analysis, but really the construction year is actually in 2028. And then the second project that's being added as a result of this amendment is, I already mentioned it as well, Porter County's Willow Creek Road extension from State Road 130 to US 30. We already had the segment from 700 North to US 30. This is just phases 3 and 4 from State Road 130 to US 30. And we have that complete by 2040 as the major year. So those are the 4 projects being affected by amendment number 2 to the NWI 2050 plan. Are there any questions about this amendment?
Any questions, comments? So now we're at the point that we finished the planning section. Floor, if you can, will you call roll for the committee?
Okay, just a second, please.
First, let's make a vote. I'm sorry. I need a motion for the consensus agenda for all of these issues in planning. Resolution 2105, 2107, 2108, and 2109. Do I have a motion to recommend favorably to the commission?
So moved. Mike Chiva, City of Valpo.
Do I have a second?
Second, George Topple.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, floor. Will you call the roll?
Yes. Sheila Brilson. Kevin Brightsky.
Yes.
Thank you. George Topple.
Yes.
Thank you. Jim Tunn. Mark Odell. Frank Rivera. Dean Button.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Griffin. Matt Murphy. Mike Jabo.
Yes.
Thank you. David Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Blossom Mabon.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth Schrader.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth West.
Yes.
Thank you. Robin Barzoni Tillman. Kelly Wenger.
Yes.
Thank you. Kay Nelson. Heather Ennis. All right, that concludes roll call, and I have a total of 9.
I do too. 9 favorable votes. So moved. We'll forward this to the Plan Commission that are the full commission that meets next week for NERC. Let's proceed with programming. Beginning with the public comment report for amendment number 13 to fiscal year 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program and fiscal year 2022-2026 TIP adoption. That's on page 18. Did we have any public comment?
Good morning, everybody. No, there were not any public comments to amendment number 13 of the 2024 to 2020 to 2024 TIP. Or to the, as of this date, the public comment period ends on April 8th in a couple days at the end of this week. So, but as of now, we have not received any public comments.
Right. And we'll consider any public comment up through the 8th or even up through the full commission. But at this time, I think we're fine to deal with resolution 2110, fiscal year 2020-2024 TIP amendment number 13. That's found on pages 19 to 20 of your packet. Charles, would you?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. The tip number 13 can be found on I believe it's on our website. I thought it was in this packet, but apparently it's not, but I will go through it. On this project, there are 4 projects. In the 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program, LaPorte County has a bridge that we added, or that the state has added group local funds, the local bridge funds to for PE. Lake County, we added substantial funds for their 45th Avenue right-of-way project, 45th Avenue road widening project at right-of-way funds. Michigan City and Valparaiso both eliminated a project. We didn't necessarily need to put this through, but I wanted it to be clear, and the cities also wanted to be clear that they wanted to eliminate these projects, and instead of just not carrying them through, this way there's no question about what's going on with these projects. So that's on amendment number 13.
And I'll just say for the public comment report, IGIC is given approval of amendment number 13. And we have not received any technical comments from NDOT or FHWA.
Correct. That is correct.
So let's go ahead and take this on a vote. Are there any comments, questions? from anybody? If not, let's go ahead and do a vote. Floor, will you call roll, please? Oh, wait a minute, I need a motion. It's been a busy morning.
Dean Button.
Uh,
Mr. Chair.
Our staff's recommendation is to recommend to the NERC Commission.
I heard Dean Button.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the tip amendment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
George Topple, second.
Thank you. Mr. Topple seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing, seeing none, let's take a vote. Flora, will you call roll?
Yes. Kevin Brightsky.
Yes.
Thank you. George Topple.
Yes.
Thank you. Dean Button.
Yes.
Thanks. Matt Murphy.
Mike Jabo.
Mike Jabo. I'm so sorry, Mike. Thank
Yes.
you. David Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Blossom Mabon.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth Schrader. Beth Schrader.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth West.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelly Wenger.
Yes.
Thank you. And that concludes roll call. 9 votes total.
Thank you. We'll forward your recommendation. Thanks. Let's move on to programming 4.3 is resolution 2111 fiscal year 2022, 2026 transportation improvement program. That was supposed to be on pages 21 to 22. As far as the resolution, Charles?
Yes, the new tip, 2022 to 2026 tip, is on NERC's website. It's pretty lengthy. It's well over 100 pages. That's why it's not included in the packet. But essentially, we've added projects that were awarded through the NOFA, and it's very similar to what we have currently. So there was no earth-shattering changes to the 2024 to 2020 to 2024 tip. And I'm asking, the staff is asking that TPC vote to recommend it to the commission.
Any questions, comments, more discussion with Charles on this? Hearing none, I'm set for a motion, a recommendation for approval. Do I have a
Sure.
motion?
Dean Button moves to approve tip for 2022 to 2026.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion, George Topple.
Thank you, Mr. Topple. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's do a voice vote. Laura?
Sorry, I was muted. Kevin Brightsky.
Yes.
Thank you. George Topple.
Yes.
Thank you. Dean Button.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mike Jabo.
Yes.
Thank you. David Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Blossom Mabon.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth Schrader. Beth Schrader.
Yes.
Thank you. Beth West.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelly Wenger.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes roll call, total 9.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next, we have any topical committee reports from the NERC staff. Is there anybody with a report today? I don't see or hear anybody, so
Mr. Chair, I can
Yes, sir.
mention that the Surface Transportation Committee did meet right before this meeting this morning, and we discussed resolutions 2106 and 2108, which were recommended to this committee. And we also discussed a data dashboard that we're in the midst of trying to deploy on our website, which should be landing relatively soon. And finally, as will be discussed later in this meeting, we discussed some of the supplemental coronavirus relief funds that will be made available for transportation purposes in our region. So I look forward to hearing more about that. And our next meeting is going to be in August.
Okay. And in response to that, I guess first I should ask for any planning partners online.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have one report, and I'm going back to topical committee reports.
Pardon?
I said I have a topical committee report.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the Transit Operators Roundtable met last week. We are looking at procedures moving forward, how the transit operators would like to be represented at future meetings, whether that be to continue be a working group or move to a full-fledged committee with public comments and public viewing. We are looking at that, and we will take that up at the next meeting, which is going to be on May 4th. And that's it.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Sorry, I missed you, Charles.
That's
I
fine.
believe Lori Cagle from South Shore Clean Cities has requested a report through the chat.
Right. Well, we were getting to our planning partners, which includes South Shore Clean Cities. So go, Lori.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. There are some funding opportunities and some educational opportunities that would be of interest to this group that I'd like to share. First things first, the IDEM VW funding program. IDEM on March 23rd announced round 3 of the funding for on-road and non-road projects. There's a total of 12 million available for this round, and proposals are due on June 1st. We have 2 webinars with IDEM's Sean Seals, who runs this program, coming up with details on the funding opportunity, both from the state and from South Shore Clean Cities as to how we can help you with these. The first is April 13th from 1 to 2. That one is specific to school bus fleets. I know we don't have a lot of folks on this one, this committee, who are involved in that capacity, but wanted to mention it just in case. And then on April 15th from 1 to 2 is the general on-road, non-road fleet webinar. You can register for that on our website, southshorecleancities.org. Would highly recommend you do so, and that you contact us for any help you may need on those applications. Also, this deadline is coming up very quickly. The FTA low no emission bus program grants are due April 12th. If you have any questions, please contact us. Also, the Partners for Clean Air virtual award ceremony is April 30th from 10 to 11:30. IDEM Commissioner Bruno Piggott is going to be giving his State of the Air and Environment in Northwest Indiana as the keynote speaker. And Shannon Zarrett from the U.S. Department of Energy is going to be speaking. We're also going to be awarding scholarships and annual awards. So this is Partners for Clean Air. You can also register for that on our website, southshorecleancities.org. While we're at it, I also would like to encourage every organization and community here to become a member of Partners for Clean Air. It costs you nothing at the green and bronze levels, requires very little commitment beyond pledging 1 to 3 activities to take on Ozone Action Days, which begin, the Ozone Action season begins May 1st, and Earth Month seems like the perfect time to do that. I can send the link on how to do that to Floor to include in minutes, if that's helpful. It's also a good month to make sure you're a member of the South Shore Clean Cities and NERC Green Fleet program. This is a program by which we will come in and do a full audit of your fleet. We will recommend cleaner alternatives specific to your fleet, And once we've done this, we then have that report that is used to help with grant funding and programs. So please contact us, or you can also get this information at southshorecleancities.org. We have another educational event coming up tomorrow, April 7th, a non-road equipment webinar. This is specific to non-road equipment that helps with property management. So things like propane lawnmowers, electric lawnmowers, things of that nature. So things for your parks department, perhaps public works. I know that handles that for some of our communities. Again, southshorecleancities.org, you can register there. Also tomorrow, Charles Bradsky is the guest on Green Fleet Radio, and I was guest hosting for Carl. So be sure to listen on Lakeshore Public Radio tomorrow. He's going to be talking about the tips, so it's timely. And then George Topple is our guest next Wednesday. And I also got to guest host for that one. And he'll be talking a little bit about his role with NERC, so I would check that out. And last but not least, please save the date, August 10th. We're really excited. Our annual conference and expo is going to be live and in person at the Blue Chip Stardust Event Center in Michigan City this year. Registration and sponsorship are going to open up very soon, so please keep an eye out for that. And that's all. Appreciate you giving me the floor. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing us so much good news and opportunities. I do have a question. How many of our school corporations belong to South Shore Clean Cities, specifically the bus fleet?
Sure, I would have to go through and take a peek. Most of our largest school corporations are members, and we've been extremely successful within the NERC region, the MACOG region and beyond, in helping those fleets to get funding, particularly through the VW program, including for the first electric school bus in our region, which is going to be coming to Crown Point Community Schools. A lot of propane buses and fueling infrastructure. Hammond, School City of Hammond comes to mind there. School City of Michigan City comes to mind. School City of East Chicago, I believe, is the first with propane buses in our region. Also, the first electric school bus in the state was not in the NERC region, but we assisted with that, and that was Carmel Clay. So I don't have a specific number, but the vast majority of our schools are, and we are working diligently to make sure those who aren't become involved.
Right. And that's what I would encourage, is that anybody out there listening bring in their school fleets as well. Good work. Thank you. Any other planning partners from the Chicago metropolitan area or otherwise? If not, let's go on to other business, staff announcements, upcoming meetings. First, we have information about the coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriations fund. I think Charles will address that. Scott alluded to it earlier, but.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I have a PowerPoint presentation. If I could share my screen. Meredith, can you allow me to share my screen?
Like you have to be made a host. Let me see.
This is Candace. I'm going to try to call Meredith, and Vince, she stepped away.
No, he is now available.
Oh.
It's available to him now.
Oh,
I
thank
apologize
you.
for that. I thought I did it earlier.
Okay, good morning, everybody. The Highway Infrastructure Program Corona Response Relief and Supplemental Appropriations Act 2021. In that, Northwest Indiana received $5.5 million. That must be obligated by the end of fiscal year 2024. Now, that is federal fiscal year 2024, but I don't want to wait till the very last minute, so I'm gonna get all those funds programmed by the end of state fiscal year 2024. These funds were signed in December of 2020, and they came to Northwest Indiana through NDOT. Group 1 received $5.3 million, a little more than $5.3 million. So, and then Group 2 received $206,000. There's a big difference, but we are definitely going to be using those funds. On some of the specifics about these funds, they are federal funds. So all federal guidelines must be followed. The NEPA must be followed. If you do plan on using some of these funds for PE or right-of-way, which you're allowed to, you're going to have to go through the whole RFP process and choose someone. So keep that in mind. That will add 3 to 6 months to your timeline. Any project that is eligible for Surface Transportation Block Grant, STBG funds, are eligible for these funds. Now, I would like to point out that initially, when I was doing my investigation, I misread this, and I thought these were only for preventative maintenance projects, but that is incorrect. We can use these for any project that STBG funds can be used for. So that is a great help for us. If we were to follow the PM guidelines, you'd have to have a much more detailed asset management program set up, and no one in the region, LaPorte is the only one that is, the city of LaPorte is the only one that does have that program set up. And therefore, they're the only ones that do use federal funds for preventative maintenance projects. These funds require a 20% match. So just to keep that in mind, and that's in line with STBG funds normally. And these funds can also be used in conjunction with other federal funds. In other words, CMAQ, TA, or HSIP. I will point out, though, that these funds are only 80-20. So if we do use HSIP funds or this project for an HSIP project, you will not get your 90%. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, like I mentioned, these funds can be used for any phase, PE, right-of-way, or CN. And these funds cannot be used for any new roads. So, or any roadway expansion projects. So Klein Avenue, Willow Creek, Kennedy Avenue are not eligible for these. But those transformative projects, we've already got a timeline set up, and I think it's a good timeline. So, but we do have other options. We can shift other projects around to make room for these projects if we choose to. But anyway, so how best to allocate these funds? We met internally to discuss these questions and some of the guidelines that staff has come up with on to best allocate these funds. First off, we're going to search our list of projects for possible candidates that we can accelerate. Now that includes projects in 2025 and 2026. That's mainly the projects we're going to accelerate. Secondly, we're going to move projects already in our system forward, as I mentioned. And then we're going to review the recent NOFA for additional projects. We just completed the NOFA last fall, so we have a great resource of projects that have already been put in there. And quite honestly, it wouldn't be fair to anybody, any LPA that submitted a project in the NOFA and some other project came up and bumped their project. So we have the list of projects from our NOFA, so we're going to be looking at that and coming up with additional projects to fund for these. We do not have any intention to give any category preference over another. Now, in the past, you know, as we've said, multi-use trails is a tier 1. We have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. We're not going to give any preference over any category. Now that we will be comparing apples to oranges, But as I've said before, for the cashier, we don't care what kind of produce you bring to the checkout, as long as you bring produce to the checkout. I don't care if I don't care if we're comparing apples to oranges or bell peppers or olives. I don't care. Fifth, if the project schedule slips, it will not create a legacy project. So if you're awarded this and you cannot, if we're going to be careful about awarding these funds for projects, because we want these to be used. And T-Rock will discuss this further, but it is not our intention to create any legacy projects with this. Lastly, we've come up with 4 different pillars and choosing additional projects. The score, that makes sense. We've already got projects that we compared and we scored against each other. Project readiness. Being these projects, these funds have to be used by fiscal year 2024. I'm going to be really careful. We are going to be really careful about looking at right away and how that's going to affect it. Also going to be looking at railroad. Are you looking at an at-grade railroad crossing, something that may jeopardize these funds? We do not want to jeopardize these funds. Equity. We want to look at equity. We want to make this as fair and equal for everybody. If someone's got 6 projects out there that they've already been awarded funds for 6 projects, is it really fair that they would get 7 projects? Why not give it to someone who has not been awarded a project? And secondly, we want to have a solution to an issue. These funds were awarded, and that was the desire for these awarding the coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriations was a solution to an issue. So we're looking at solving an issue that you may have. Now, at the April 27th, 2021, T-Rock will take up these funds and be looking at which projects we will decide on which projects to accelerate and to fund. And then therefore a recommendation that will be given to TPC on which projects that we can include in our 2022 to 2026 TIP in July and August. And after the commission votes in July and August, a notice to proceed will be given to projects and to the communities. So this should give the LPA should be ready to go after the commission approves it. We don't want to lose these funds. So after the April 27th, if an LPA has been granted funds for PE, they can kind of a soft start, I guess you could say. They're going to be able to go after and start their RFP process. Like I said, that is a 3 to 6 month process, depending on when you can get your agreements in place and get your contracts going. So I don't want these funds to be lost. And that is it. Are there any questions?
Charles, question, you kind of
Yes.
intermingled your terms. You said it's got to be spent, but then your opening slide or somewhere else said obligated by 2024. Can you straighten that
Yes.
out?
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. These funds have to be obligated.
Okay, thank you.
We have 5 years to spend those funds, but they have to be obligated by 2024. And I'm not sure if we can re-obligate those funds. not like demonstration funds where if you had extra funds left over, you could re-obligate those. To the best of my knowledge, that is not an option. Any other questions?
I just appreciate the staff. On pretty short notice, we put together a meeting between myself and them. And I think we came up with good recommendations for how to wisely spend this money to follow through with the mission and get this all accomplished. I see this helping move some projects forward and opening up opportunities for other projects. So I think this was a good plan. And for those of you who participate in T-Rock, the Group 1 funds, of course, are substantially larger, 5.3 million. And that'll be discussed with the T-Rock for Group 1. And of course, LaPorte County has a couple $100,000. And that should be discussed in T-Rock as well.
Yes, we'll discuss that both on Lake and Porter will be at 9 a.m. and LaPorte County will be at 1 p.m.
Same day.
Same day, April 27th. That will be a Zoom meeting.
Please be there. Any other questions or comments for Charles or the staff? If not, we have several meetings coming up that are published, including the NERC full commission meeting April 15th. Or it may be executive board if we don't have a quorum. Transportation resource oversight, Lake and Porter counties, April 27th at 9 a.m. to 11 probably. And then LaPorte County T-Rock will be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Land Use Committee will be May 6th, 10 to 12 a.m. Anything else good for the cause?
I'd like to mention that quarterly reports are due on April 15th. So get started on those.
I think staff and the municipality's been doing a good job of following through and helping us figure out where the money is, where it's going. So I really like what's happening with the quarterly reports. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate it. Our next meeting for TPC will be May 11th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Possibly in the NERC offices. We'll wait and see. Mr. Button? Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
So moved. We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.